Hello, Jag Nation. Each and every week during the football season, we bring you insight into the Jaguar football program. Coach Basil enters his fourth season at Flower Mound, coming off an impressive 8-3 record and an undefeated district championship in 2018. You can subscribe and share this on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker.com, that's Spreaker.com, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and soon on iHeartRadio. This is presented by the Flower Mound Jaguar Football Booster Club. Jag Nation Football with Coach Basil starts now. I'm John Piper, and each and every week we sit down with head coach Brian Basil to talk all things Jaguar football. This broadcast is presented by the Jaguar Booster Club. And now I'd like to welcome to the show Coach Basil. How you doing, Coach?
Doing good, John. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. We were just talking, what a great time of year. It's October, the football stride. We've got some exciting postseason baseball going on, the college scene as well. And we were just talking, I know you're a big Ohio State guy growing up in Ohio, and they're currently, I think, ranked in the top 4, aren't they?
Yeah, I think maybe number 2 somewhere. They're up there.
Yeah, so I know that's leaving currently Oklahoma fans, I think, out for that potential national title run at the moment. But I had a chance to catch my very first Texas OU weekend. I got a chance to go. We were sitting on the OU section, and I'll tell you what, Coach, they were rowdy. But what a beautiful day at Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. Had a chance to go with my son, and I know that's probably every kid's dream, playing high school football here in North Texas, to play in that game, represent one of those 2 schools, and thus, they've got grandparents that played at Ohio State or somewhere else. But what a glorious day to be there and be at Fair Park. Have you ever had a chance to go down there?
I have not had a chance. Would love to go sometime. They always have that game. Seems like an 11 o'clock kickoff, which we're typically finishing up work, wrapping up the Friday night game, and then getting right to work on the next week's opponent. So it's always tough to kind of distract our focus away from that. But always hear about the atmosphere, and of course you got 2 perennial powerhouses. I know there's always a lot of talk about playing home and home, but that Cotton Bowl venue is about half the distance, and of course with the state fair going on, it's quite a scene. So always a game that we usually have that on college game day when our kids come up, when we're finishing up film and going through the weight workout, and it typically has a chance to weave its way on there in the fourth quarter when we're up here working, and we'll always enjoy watching that. Every once in a while, may have a kid that we coach playing in that game, and always brings an extra little insight. Of course, there's a lot of local kids playing that game maybe you coached against, and it's fun to turn that on and see those guys competing.
Well, and I appreciate your time. You're taking a short break from some film and game planning sessions on this Sunday. Coming off another big win, 54-6 over Irving Nimitz. Coach, your offense is putting up some big numbers. You do 55 the week prior, 54 on Friday. But kind of the storyline might be your defense, only allowing 6 total points in the last 2 weeks. You have to like what you're seeing from your Jags over this run here.
Well, we've had some younger guys that we knew coming into the season for first varsity experience, and some guys playing in new positions. Spencer Botmanis was one that was a varsity Mike linebacker for us last year. We moved him to defensive end, and he's settled in. He's got enough snaps there where we felt like he could be a really good player there and help us out tremendously, and he has. So you're having those guys settle in, some guys in the secondary that were younger guys coming in that are gaining some confidence. So I think that's the biggest thing on defense is those guys they're playing hard and they're flying around. That's the biggest thing is seeing those guys take pride in their style of play. And if we can continue to do that, then we'll be excited about where this team progresses.
Well, Coach, like we just mentioned, you put 54 points on the board. Another big day for your offense. You rack up 467 total yards to Irving Nimitz, 148. Here's another thing that jumps out. Though you balance out on average number of snaps, you had 55. Nimitz had 57. I believe the week prior the same thing happened. You had less snaps from your opponent, but dominated the game. How do you explain that?
Well, I know in some of the previous week, I talked to Coach Grant on Saturday. I think we had 6 third downs. So we're moving the ball in big plays. We had a couple scoring drives that were probably less than 5 plays where you're scoring in a short amount of time. So that's not typical, and I don't anticipate that being a trend, but it just worked out to where we're able to chew up some big chunks of yardage and put the ball in the end zone pretty quick, where it's not taking as many plays to get down there and score. We also got the ball in pretty good field position a couple times where we're starting drives on the plus side of the 50-yard line. So when you get that kind of field position, you're not going to have to work the ball down the field as much to put the ball in the end zone.
Another big night for Blake Short, your quarterback. Very efficient, 19 of 26, 267 yards and 3 TDs. He seems like he's really found his niche there in the offense.
Yeah, well, he loves playing the game, and I think that's the thing that, of course, your quarterback position. I think that's a instrumental leader for you. I think that's always been the case, and even more so in this day and age. But our guys really follow his lead, and he's excited to come out to practice every day. He's excited to go compete every day. Every game is a big game for him, and so I think everybody else follows that. He loves playing football, the way he prepares, the way he focuses. Of course, he's got a good rapport with his receivers, and those guys are doing a good job catching the ball, getting open. And our offensive line has steadily progressed too, where they're giving them time to throw. When he can sit back there and find guys that are open, he's just not missing. He's hitting his targets and putting the ball where it needs to be. He's playing really well right now.
Well, speaking of the receivers and the passing game, boy, you do another great job spreading the ball around. I'm looking at it. It looks like about 7 receivers touched the ball, led by 120 yards and 1 TD by Reed Touchstone. Carson Winters had 6 receptions and 1 TD as well. Parker Clark, 2 receptions, 1 TD. Caden Basil, 1 reception, 12 yards. Reese Carter, Pierce Hudgens had a couple catches out of the backfield. Colby Clark. That does a great job keeping the defense off balance. And then, Pierce had another big night on the ground. Only 18 carries, 136 yards, averaging almost 8 yards a carry with 3 TDs. What can you say about that balanced attack between the passing game and the ground attack?
Well, it shows those guys that are ready to step up in their positions. It is nice to not be limited. We've been in some situations before where you got a guy that you got to move around a little bit so you can get him the ball. Of course, the way that an offensive series can go, you run the ball or throw it on one side of the field and you get stuck on one hash. Well, you got to have receivers on that side that are also able to be productive and don't limit your playbook. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we can run pretty much a wide open look to either side of the field to any one of our receivers. Our route concepts don't really change for what we have to do, and that's nice to be able to have guys that can be productive in that way. We're doing a good job catching the ball, and those guys are hardworking kids. Coach Grantham, our offensive coordinator, does a great job with our offense. And our practices we get a lot of reps, get a lot of work in, and I think that allows multiple players to be ready when their number's called.
Well, Coach, the big guys up front, both offense and defense, they don't get near the recognition they deserve. They're always down there in the trenches, grinding out play after play after play. I want to give you a couple minutes here on the show to really talk about your offensive line, because none of the stuff we're talking about, giving the time to Blake Short and creating those holes for Pierce. None of that would be possible without those big guys on the offensive line. So why don't you spend a few minutes talking up and down the line of scrimmage, what those guys mean to the team and what they're doing for you for Jaguar football.
Yeah, really proud of those guys. Again, that's another position where we had 4 new starters coming in this year, and Coach Waters, our offensive line coach, has done an outstanding job preparing them. During the bye week, we had Nate Adams, who was a starter at tackle for us, and our one returning starter we had coming back. We moved him to center, and then Alex Harden, who was our center, he moved to guard, and so we had a little bit of shuffling around. Says a lot about those kids, about their willingness to change positions, but just the nature of that position, and offensive linemen are very selfless. You ask any of those kids to do something, and their first response is we'll do whatever it takes to help the team. Those guys don't ever get their names called in a game. They're not scoring touchdowns or doing that, but they're some of the most excited kids when we have success. And I'm really proud of them. They're hardworking guys. I mean, you think about play in and play out, and just getting beat up and banging on people, and a lot of times they're making a block or pass set, and they're doing something where, and they don't even get to see some of the fruits of their labor. They don't always see the receptions. They don't always see the touchdown. Normally, they're so focused on doing their job, and they do their job so other people can do theirs. And I think that's the epitome of what this program's about. And I know that you got to have good players at every position, and if you want to win championships, and if you have high aspirations for your team, and you want to play at an elite level, you got to be solid in every area. But you absolutely have to be solid on the offensive line. When you're good there, then it opens up a lot of other things for you. And we go at a fast pace on our offense, and those guys don't get much of a breather, and they've got to practice and be in great condition as well. A lot of times people don't see is that our receivers, they run probably 5.5 miles at every practice, and you look at the sprint distance that involves. So you think, well, those guys, they got to be in great shape. Well, our linemen have to be in great shape as well, because they got to keep up with the pace, and they will snap the ball, and they're getting in and out of stances and having to be physical. So it's a tough position to play. I'm proud of the guys that we have there and how hard they've worked and how far they've come this season.
It gets back to that off-season conditioning, coach, that plays such a big role through the summer and some of the things that you don't even see as a coach. They're out there working out on their own. But, hey, one thing I noticed yesterday in that Texas-OU game, I think OU ended up having 9 sacks on the Texas quarterback, and I give the nod to the defensive side of the ball. The score was a little closer than it really looked, but they say deep down the stretch, and I believe this, that defense wins championships. And we don't talk about your defense much, but they're putting some shutouts on the board, holding your opponents to low numbers. Let's switch gears, and if you could talk a little bit about the defensive front and your defensive backs and linebackers as well.
Yeah, well, they're really putting a lot of confidence, and Brian Vardaman, our defense coordinator, he's really set a culture with those guys, with the mentality. It's hard to play defense. Offenses are so good schematically in what they're doing and taking advantage of some things. So there's just a mentality you got to have to play on the defensive side of football, and they play with a lot of energy. They're very tough. Again, very complimentary to the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive front really drives that engine on defense, and our front four played really well. You got to be able to stop the run. Even those teams that have those prolific passing attacks, I think when you look at winning football at every level, your run defense is always in probably the top 5 categories that correlates to having success, and being able to stop the run is important to that. Those front 4 guys are key, and then our linebackers, Landon Colby is our Mike linebacker, and Zach Taylor. Zach's another kid that we mentioned Spencer earlier, but Zach was a safety for us last year, and we moved him to will linebacker. So he's another kid on defense that's learning a new position. Those guys have really played well. we've tackled well, and a part of that is running the football too. But those guys have really worked hard. There's a lot of film study involved with defensive football.